Borrowed status is a disease that's infecting modern society. Borrowed status is very self-explanatory. It's in the word. You're borrowing status from something, from someone, from anything that's outside of you. So a classic example is someone who finds traveling really cool. Someone who really looks up to people who travel the world, that kind of thing. So what you're doing is you're posting stories, you're posting on social media, and you're borrowing the status of a traveler, of someone who travels the world. And when you speak to people, you're constantly reinforcing that status. Oh, like I traveled there, you're constantly filling it in. We all know people like this, and I think this is kind of a subconscious thing we do, like a human nature. It's part of our human nature, I should say, of like wanting to feel important. This derives from our need to feel important, to feel a sense of belonging, right? That archetype of someone who yearns for belonging, to be a part of the tribe. Because if you're not a part of the tribe, then that signals that it's death. It's loneliness, and loneliness is death, right? Death of the soul, death of the ego, or just death of, your meaning of life, you could say. So anyways, borrowed status is an infection of modern society. And I think maybe this was the case before, borrowed status of like people wanting to fit in, but now we're seeing it completely at a way larger scale, right? So another example, this is a good example that many people probably would not think of with borrowed status, but like people who consider themselves to be spiritual, hippies, you could say, right? I'm right now actually, ironically enough, in this hippie community in Guatemala, and you see people really wanting to fit that hippie archetype, and they find being a hippie is like a cool thing. So you dress up a certain way, you're around the same people, you play an instrument, whatever that person thinks is like quote unquote cool, they'll do that to borrow that status of being a hippie. Now, I'm guilty of this, and I think a lot of us are, of identifying with a group, with an ideology, with something that you find serves you, that is quote unquote cool, and subconsciously you'll borrow that status. But I don't think anything is sometimes, I don't know, it's hard to say if it's like inherently wrong or you shouldn't do it, because I do think it's part of our human nature to some degree. But I think you could just be more aware of it in your life, of like when you are borrowing status, right? So like, here's a good example, a real common one. Like I said with a traveler, but it's like, if you find raves is cool, right? If you're like really into raves, you'll be a raver, right? You'll be someone who identifies with going to raves, and you'll post the social media stuff. You'll consider yourself, oh yeah, like I know all the artists, you're a raver, because that's what's cool to you. So you'll signal that to other people, so you could basically have more of a sense of importance, and you're reflecting that almost like an insecurity onto others. So like you being insecure with yourself causes you to be borrowing status from the raving community, to then hoping that people that see you as someone who's a raver, you gain their validation. I think it all comes down to gaining validation of other tribes. And if people don't find that cool, then to you it's like, that actually hurts your ego. It triggers you, because it's like, wow, like here I am trying to borrow the status, and people aren't even reciprocating and finding that cool, right? If you love to travel, you think, I love to travel. I like to travel myself, but I'm saying, like, if you're someone who loves to travel, you would think that like everyone want to travel, but there's people out there that don't want to travel, that find traveling to be an inconvenience, something they just don't care about. A lot of people have money to travel, but they're not traveling. And those people may not find traveling super cool or the best way to spend your money and the best way to live your life. That's a hard pill to swallow, because the way you see these interests and whatever you're borrowing status from, you think that the whole world is going to see that as cool. The whole world, anyone you talk to and you tell them, oh, I've been to 40, 50 countries, you think that everyone would be like, wow, like that's awesome. No, that's not the case. Maybe you visit like tribes or, people in more remote locations, and you tell them things, and maybe they're like, honestly, that's not that cool. Or the Balinese, the Hinduist Hinduism, and in Hinduism, what I'm told is that they're very much fixated to this, like this. They live by this idea of being in one place at one time, and like to build your life there. When you're moving around constantly, you're dispersing your energy, and you're not grounded. So if they had all the money in the world, these people, they wouldn't be traveling. They wouldn't be traveling. So when you tell them you travel a lot, they may not understand the idea of borrowed status, but they see that as something that's like not that cool. So I think the more people that borrow status, and you see that, you start to observe that, these patterns, I think it really stems from insecurity, and it stems from them, just like wanting something outside themselves, them not being comfortable in their own skin, right? You could say them not loving themselves, them not being as authentic as possible. But I do think there's a layer of this that's like a subconscious thing that's almost like imprinted in us, to borrow status, to feel a part of a tribe. And it makes sense, it makes total sense. So I think I always strive to, like, obviously not consciously borrow status, but like I consciously strive to be my own self. And if people are gonna see you in whatever they want to see you as, in their own lens, right? So if they understand like the idea of borrow status, and they see you borrowing status, maybe you are, but also that's just you being you, and that's their interpretation of how they see you. Maybe they're borrowing status too, or they used to be borrowing status, so that way, the way they see, you being a part of this tribe, you identifying heavily with a certain concept, that's a reflection of their lens. So you can't control people's lenses, but what you can do is objectively look at how you're borrowing status, what you're doing, what tribes are you belonging to, and then from there trying to formulate your own way of living, your own philosophy. And that's what I think I try to do. Like I said, I don't really consider myself to be a hippie, but I'm a part of the hippie community here, I guess you could say. And like, I'm going to the ecstatic dance, I'm going to not cacao ceremonies, but I'm doing very much hippie things. People may see that being like, oh look, maybe he's borrowing status. But in reality is, I'm just by nature being there. And if you want to associate me being a part of the community with borrowing status, that's entirely your reflection. You see what I'm saying? So you could be a part of a community, part of a tribe, without necessarily borrowing status. When you meet people, when you meet very successful people that are very much, they're confident and they're comfortable with their own being, with who they are, you'll notice that they're not constantly trying to mention things outside of them to borrow people's status. Like, they're not, like, maybe like they've met really cool people, maybe they've like hung out with the president or A-list celebrities. They're not trying to like spit that out, their ego is not like starving for validation. If someone asks, oh, like, the president this, president that, you could be like, oh yeah, actually one time I had dinner with the president. Like, that's pretty cool. That person is very much comfortable in their own skin. They don't feel like they need a pull on someone else's, like their ego is pulling and starving for more, like hungry, right? The ego is satiated in that person, and if it comes up, it comes up. So I think it's really good to practice this, and then naturally you'll stop repelling people. Like, I mean, the person, we all know the people that are constantly like needing that validation, be like, oh, I've been there. Oh yeah, I hung out with those people, or oh, I love raves. It's like they're constantly needing more. They're hungry, and maybe this has been you. And maybe it's like triggering for you. I think you got to reflect on this and take a step back and being like, you know what? In the future, I'm not going to be trying to borrow status. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be a human being. I'm going to become more humble. I think a lot of this is about humility, right? You got to humble yourself to realize that not everyone's going to care about what you're talking about. And the more you can just be yourself and feeling like, yourself is already the status, you know what I mean? You don't need to borrow status because you already have status with who you are. Then it's just so natural, it's flowing, and you're gonna attract the right people, attract the people doing cool things, right? The people doing cool things that are very much comfortable in their own skin. Why would they want someone who's constantly like needing validation? You could feel that, right? The salesperson who's constantly needy and asking you to buy from them when you don't even care about what they're selling, or you don't even understand what they're selling, right? That's not really borrowed status, but it's the same energy. It's very much repelling people. So yeah, I guess to summarize this video is that take a step back from what you identify with, like who you are, right? Because we're all built off these things that identify us with, like in the outside world, right? And again, nothing's wrong with that. Nothing's wrong with the materialistic side of things. But ask yourself, okay, well, you know what? If I'm gonna do this, if I'm gonna be a raver, if I'm gonna be a hippie, if I'm gonna be a musician, anything. It could be the good or the bad, right? Like it could be something that, like partying, clubbing is one example, but then like just like being a hippie and being really into health. Oh, that's a good one. Being really into health. That's another prime example of like borrowing status. It's like, oh, look at me. I'm this person who's vegan, or I'm carnivore, and you're trying to borrow status from that thing. So I think you get the point. I've been ingrained that point enough of what it means to borrow status. Ask yourself in your life, where do those patterns come up? Why am I borrowing status? Should I be borrowing the status? I mean, answer is usually no, you shouldn't be. And then this is a good practice. I like to give actionable steps into the real world, right? Rather than thinking this or writing this, actually go out in the real world if you can, somewhere outside. And when you're meeting people, don't feel the need to like talk so much about what you do, right? It's getting to a bit of a human psychology, like how to win friends and influence people, of how, rather than talking so much about yourself, you talk about the other person more, right? Because who doesn't like to talk about themselves? Now, I won't get into this. This is maybe a video for another time, but it's interesting to just like think about the people that you've connected well with, that you love. Those people aren't the ones that are just talking about themselves. So I think borrowed status also comes from the idea of like being very egocentric, or just very like focused on yourself and talking about yourself. No one likes to be around someone who's like that. Not to say you can't talk about, the raves you're going to or the foods you're eating, whatever it may be, but don't feel the need to like, just mention it out of nowhere. And it's a practice. It's not easy, because I've caught myself many times, like someone's talking and I'm like, there's this urge to like want to say, oh, here's an example. I love to travel. Someone's like, oh, China's cool, I want to go to China. And I have this urge to be like, oh, I've been to China. I saw it with my own eyes. I've been there. And again, that's me borrowing the status. The lines get blurred though between borrowing the status and just like wanting to just express yourself because you find these things cool, you know what I mean? So I guess, like the lines get blurred, but I guess the rule of thumb would be like when you're meeting someone at first, don't be that person that feels a need to just like mention that. Like if I just met somebody now and they're like, oh, I'm from China, I'm not going to be like, oh, I've been to China. No, I don't need to. There's no point. What's the point of that? Just so I can get their validation, because that's their world. That's, maybe that's cool. Oh, this, white guy, Westerner going to China, right? So like subconsciously, I think we're so good at seeing what people resonate with, what people find cool, and then trying to be in that box of like these certain archetypes, these certain people, right? So I guess that's to summarize this video, is just to be more conscious, be more aware of that, and observe those patterns happening in your life. And maybe once you get to know people better, then you kind of open up more of like, oh, this is what I do, this is who I am. But I think it's really cool to almost be a little bit more mysterious. And it's not easy, because it's not like our human nature to like, our human nature is to express ourselves and to tell us who we are and what we identify with. But if you like take a pause on that and just talk to somebody, get to know them first, it's just a great way to make more friends, to be honest, to be around good people, for people to I guess it's also a way of, I guess kind of like validation, because the less you borrow status, the more people gravitate towards you. But I think it's a healthier way, nothing's inherently wrong with like wanting validation, but it's how you do it, I think. Because again, validation taps into our primal instincts of like wanting to be validated and a part of a tribe and part of a group of people, and and so on and so forth. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So anyways, I'll wrap up this video now. Usually these videos on my channel are with my camcorder here, but it died, so we're on the iPhone, unfortunately. But it's pretty cool. camera. Anyways, wrap up here. And as always, much love. And also, if you found this valuable, comment down below. I would love to hear your insights and maybe your experience, whatever it may be. And I do have a link as well if you want to have a chat about whatever it may be. Much love, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.